Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Screw Space podcast. Today we are joined by Mark Frost, and what we are discussing is another contribution to the Boots to Boardroom series. In particular, what we're discussing today is from service to strength and how the military network and community can actually, well, we're going to give it its roses today in terms of how helpful it can be, in terms of mentorship, in terms of guidance, and just in terms of knowledge sharing, in terms of the communication between veterans when they leave the military to the commercial world. And what I mean by that is that you can have, obviously, on paper, a transition of going like, yes, you need to get this certification and you need to get that certification. But what we want to discuss is the actual battle scars that are shared between those people, and like, okay, what you actually need to do is X and Y, and then you'll be able to get into the commercial world from this and then climb the ladder from that. But before we properly get into this, Mark, are you okay just to give the audience a little bit of an introduction to yourself, if that's okay?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Mark. I'm a CTI lead at an airline. I've been doing that job now for 3.5, nearly 4 years. Moved into cyber when I left the military. I left the military at the Royal Marines in 2019, served for 12 years, and then transitioned into cyberspace. During my resettlement period, I did some qualifications through a veteran-owned startup that got us our qualifications, took us down for an intensive course. But before that, I was an instructor for recruits down at Lympstone for 2 years, and then before that, working on armoured vehicles down at Bovington.
Nice. Okay, so before we get into the actual transition, Mark, when did cyber sort of become like, yeah, that's what I want to do?
So I've always had an interest in intelligence. I did intelligence for a little bit in the Marines. And as I was leaving, it was, what is out there? What is the growing industry? And cyber was it.
Yep.
Before I left, there was guys going out and doing maritime security and the close protection stuff, but cyber was kind of the next big thing.
Yep.
And cyber threat intelligence really spoke to me because it incorporated what I loved and what I enjoyed in intelligence, but in a new field.
Yeah, absolutely. There's such a nice cross-pollination between, obviously, intelligence in the military and then intelligence in the commercial world, and cyber is that nice bridge, hence why there is a lot of people that make that transition over. And that pretty much segues perfectly into what we'll discuss today then. So, as with all the other podcasts, what I like to start with, Mark, is a little bit of the helicopter overview, and then throughout the next 30 minutes, we'll get a little bit more granular in terms of the details. So, in your own experiences, Mark, what has been some of the main challenges that you found transitioning from the mill to the commercial world?
I think a big one's identity.
Okay.
When you're in the military, you've got this identity and friendship group that never leaves. You live with each other, you work with each other, you're there from as soon as you start work to when you go to bed.
It's intense, yeah.
It is intense. And then when you leave, that goes at the flick of a switch, because you're in camp and then you leave for the last time and then you never go back.
Yeah.
And you keep those relationships, but they're not there all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a real struggle. I found it a struggle with that transition from, you know where you are every day, what time you start work, when you're going to go to the gym, when you're going to go for a run. It's all planned.
Yes.
And then that's gone.
Yep.
And it sounds strange, but you're with your family more.
Yes.
So that's a massive change, not only for you, but for your family.
Yep.
You're there every day, which is,
I suppose, to come in on that, yeah, it's like, in a weird way, the free will becomes a little bit scary, and in the sense of, like, you're no longer Mark the soldier, you are Mark the dad, you are Mark the husband, you are Mark the son, whatever it might be, Mark the friend, in a different context. And all of a sudden, this whole identity shift, it just throws you a bit out of whack, and you're like, oh, 1 second, like, how do I balance everything here? And especially when you finished a tour and you come back, and like, it can be a little bit of time to adjust, but you're going back. Yeah. I suppose when that's done, that can be a really stark reminder, like, oh my god, I'm back in the commercial world, and you've you've done all this serious stuff abroad, hostile environments, dealing with life or death situations, and also you're in the commercial world, and you've got to figure it out. And you're still young enough in terms of, like, you can't retire yet. So you've got to start again, essentially. You go back to square one.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of, day one, where do you start?
So I was very lucky. I say lucky. I broke my leg 6 months before I was due to leave playing rugby. So I had 6 months where I was able to be at home while still drawing a wage from the military.
Yes.
So I had an extra 6 months where I could settle into being back home.
Yes.
Knowing that I was getting paid before that switch got turned off.
Yes.
I think it's just really important to remember that there is a life after the military, but that takes time to get used to. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? So that planning phase, luckily for me, was a little bit longer.
Yes.
But networking, getting to know people, knowing what industry you want to go into, and trying to get as much information as possible. And tap into the Veterans Network. That's what I did. It really, really helped me with that initial foot onto the ladder.
So talk us through it then. So obviously you've mentioned a couple of things there that you tapped into the military network. It was a more of a normative transition in the sense of you knew it was coming. There's obviously a difference between normative and non-normative transitions in the sense of, like, a transition that you know is coming versus a transition that you don't know is coming. Yours was a bit of both with a broken leg, but you knew that you were leaving, so it's kind of middle ground. So obviously, in that 6 months, tell me, what did you do in terms of, like, okay, I'm leaving now. What steps did you put in place?
A lot of research into, I knew I wanted to get into cyber.
Okay.
Which area of cyber? Because saying you're in cybersecurity is like saying you're a builder.
Yes.
You're a plumber, an electrician, a brickie. So a lot of research into where I wanted to go, and if that's the route, what I needed to do. And that's really where, as I mentioned, the company I went through, Crucial Academy, was set up by ex-Marines. They'd take you on a 3-week intensive course, get you a qualification in CTI or whichever area you wanted to go into. There's different courses. But again, it was focusing on civilian qualifications. Everybody in the room was in the same boat, or had recently left or was looking to leave. So that first step gave a real insight into the industry I wanted to go into. And I did that about 3 months before I left, during my transition phase. So from there, you get to know recruiters, and that was when Josh cropped up from Trident. Speaking to him, a fountain of knowledge within the industry. And that was kind of my first experience of the Veterans Network pulling together. I thought, I need to tap into this. Because you don't know it's there before you leave because you're not a veteran. And it was just a real eye-opener as to we really do look after ourselves, look after each other.
That's it, and obviously I can testament to Josh's fountain of knowledge. Like he really does know the industry, and I suppose part of the fact that he knows it so much is obviously he's got that mindset in terms of what was instilled with him in the Marines, like yourself. He's like, I'm not just going to be good, I'm going to be excellent, I'm going to know everybody and everything. So, like you say, it's a good contact to have, and like you say, it just so happens that he also was a recruiter, so that was perfect for in the sense of, like, oh, he can also find me a job as well, not just make an introduction here and there, he can actually find me a job. So I suppose that's sort of want to take it next in the sense of, like, so Josh obviously found you a job. Was it the right job for you at the time in terms of, like, was it the right role? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I went in as the company's first dedicated CTI analyst. It was only a small company. There was only 12, 13 people in the company, but the managing director was a career naval man, a Matlow intelligence officer. So when I did the interview, there was already that automatic connection. And I know he spoke to Josh afterwards as part of the feedback, which came back to me, and Luke said to Josh, there's so much more that Mark has that he can offer that's not on his CV. I've worked with Marines before, and I know what they can offer. So that was, again, somebody knowing the veterans community and what servicemen can offer that wasn't written down on the CV. So that was the first kind of step into the industry.
Yep.
Which again, another veteran has given me that leg up and taken a risk. You're someone with no experience in the industry. Yes, I had the qualifications.
Yep.
But it's an industry that's built on experience.
Yep.
So it's really important that when we can, we give people with no experience the leg up to say, yeah, come on in and we'll give you that experience. And it just so happened that for me, it was through the veteran network.
And it's just so, I can obviously testify to it, even though I'm not a veteran myself. I see it, and I've worked in both, obviously, the staffing industry with Trident, and obviously I've now moved into the go-to-market world, that I still see the camaraderie of the ex-mil, obviously with myself working for a veteran-owned company in Claritas, that it's kind of like, at the start, and I emphasise at the start, there is that still camaraderie of a little bit of us versus them, in the sense of like the commercial world is the enemy now, and it's like, okay, we need to stick together at the start. This is our target. This is the enemy, and I say enemy in quotation marks. But like, we need to help each other out to achieve this outcome. Would you agree to that? Am I reaching? Because then once you're away, it's fine then, and you've got the experience in this world, and then the commercial world will accept you as one of our own. Do you know what I mean? Would you agree to that?
I think I wouldn't say it's us and them. I would say it's more the experience that needs to take them under their wing rather than us and them. So it's, I would say, older brother, younger brother sort of relationship.
Which way? The commercial world being the older brother?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and come on, like, this is what we can do. Like, this is how you need to act. And that's a big one, is how you act. Because being in the military, it's, especially the Marine, very male-dominated environment. And you can say things in the military that you wouldn't get away with in an office.
Really? I don't know, I think I'd disagree with you on that one, Mark. I don't know, just because the conversations that I've had is like, in military, it's like, you do not speak up, like, you do not go against an order. In commercial, you can have like a BDR sort of say to, I don't know, the sales director, oh, actually, no, I completely disagree with you. I was actually excellent there, and and that obviously can cause friction in the commercial world, where it's like, well, you don't speak to me like that. I'm your superior. Yeah,
I think I'm looking at more like the banter side between teams and things you can say and do. Fully unacceptable in any part of civilian life. So having someone who's been in that civilian life can kind of give the gentle, like, yeah, that's not maybe something that we should be doing or saying, or you know, little bit lead by example, but understanding that things are done with completely the best intention, but just maybe not in the right way.
No, it's a terrific point, Mike. It's a terrific point, and like I say, you can see both sides to it, in all fairness. And like, to circle back round to the path that we were going down, there is that distinction between commercial and military, hence why we've even got a rationale for today's podcast, in the sense of, like, it's not an easy crossover. I suppose my next question to you, more than anything, is the certifications that the military do for you is second to none. Like, in terms of, how do I describe this? You mentioned a few minutes ago that on your CV you couldn't put that you had that military mindset, but luckily your first boss in the commercial world was ex-bootneck, and he knows, he's been there, and he was like, right, that means that he's mustard, he's a cut above the rest, and I can rely on him. But you can't put that on a CV. You can't quantify it, but you can quantify the military certifications, and that is known across the board that, okay, that is a very good certification. It's not just like your, again, I say this in the most respectful way, it's not just a CompTIA Plus or whatever it might be. That is a proper qualification, and I can rely technically on him. So would you kind of agree that like military certifications, they do stand the test of time coming over to commercial? Would you say that not so much?
Yeah, They do, and I think what it shows more is the experience you've got.
Yep.
And the transferable experience. But the biggest thing that service leavers do, I think, especially in that first CV, trying to get the first job, they undersell or they oversell the wrong things.
Okay.
So they don't explain how great they are at communication.
Yep.
Like they've had to communicate for their entire service in some really bad situations.
Yep.
High pressure, lack of sleep. That is all mega transferable. But they don't sell on those key points. They'll sell on how much money they've looked after in assets, which is great. And it shows that you've got that capability, but it's not the most important thing.
Yep.
It's that communication and how have you achieved what you've achieved.
Yep.
Through those key points of, leadership, communication, being able to speak to recruits on day one or generals, in presentations.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really key.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the communication style it's absolutely massive, and I think that eventually comes across. What I've seen, it's always someone's second role, and this is purely my own 50 pence on this. It's always that second role where you can start to get it across that the ex-mil guys are like, okay, they've done this, and now they've done it in the commercial setting. What I mean by that is, I'll see people like yourself, Mark, being very senior roles in the mill. Then that first role in the commercial world, it can often be like a step or two below what you were doing in the mill. And it's like, and you can do that for 12 months. And it's like, oh, okay, they can do it now. Okay, then we'll do it. The amount of people that I spoke to, it's like that first role contract gig, or it was for maybe a company that was SME, 250 heads, and all of a sudden they'll go into a Barclays, they'll go into a Sky, they'll go into aviation, they'll go into this, they'll go into that, and it's like, okay, they can do it now, okay, we can trust them. And it's weird, isn't it, that they have to take that stepping stone.
So when I left at 30 after 12 years, and they changed the pension system.
Yep.
And I'm sure loads of guys who listen to this will agree. When I joined up, I could retire at 40 and start drawing my pension.
Yeah.
And then they changed it, so I don't draw it till I'm 65. So it was a toss-up of, do I retrain at 30? Or do I do full service, retrain at 40, knowing that at some point I'm going to have to take a pay hit for that first role? Yeah. So it was easier, it seemed like an easier decision to leave half pension, take a pay hit at 30 and retrain at 30 than do that at 40 when kids are older. Expenses are going to be more with, property and just life in general. Yeah. So there is that initial pay hit, and I think it's a necessity to get the experience.
Yes.
Like you're saying, you need to prove yourself in that environment to say, actually, look, this is what you've got, and if you want to keep me, you need to push me up that ladder quicker, because I'm outshining all my peers, who your peers are going to be potentially early 20s, first job out of uni. Yep. And you've got so much more to offer. Yep. Because of your life experience.
Yeah, it's what we were saying off camera, weren't it? Before this, it was just like I say, it might be one step back, but it most certainly is two steps forward, and even more so in cyber, it is a ladder. Once you are on it, you can go up fast, and with that comes the financial rewards. But it's what you're saying there. Now that you're on that ladder, you've switched over from military to commercial. Your peers now, who are like you say, like in your 30s, they may have come through the education system, but they haven't looked in the whites of somebody's eyes when a breach has happened, for example. And like you say, it's they're sleep deprived. Empathy is the most important skill. It's like, okay, this is what needs to happen. And whilst on paper all the exams can teach you the perfect scenario, when you're dealing with people and real life scenarios where jobs are at risk, people could lose their mortgage, there is regulation pressure. When the pressure's on, have they got the personal capabilities to stand for it when the times are tough? Do you know what I mean? So
it's really difficult to know if someone's got that capability until they're there.
Yes.
So, early 20s, straight out of uni, can they deal with the pressure? You don't know until the pressure's put on.
Yep.
Somebody who's come from the military, whether they've been on an operational tour or not, you know that during their training, they've faced a lot of pressure and, some probably pretty horrendous conditions, exercises, deployments abroad. It all adds to the makeup of you as a veteran,
Yep.
knowing that that person's done what I've done,
Yep.
or something very similar, so you can trust them.
Yep.
And I'm not saying I don't trust non-veterans,
Yes.
but you can,
it's guaranteed resilience versus have they got resilience? And like you say, time will tell. You can't assess it in an interview. It literally, they have to be put into that setting. Just like you, when you joined the Marines, you had to prove your resilience by going through the training, and you're doing it in a physical setting. Like, yes, not everyone has done that, and I'm not saying that Marines are the only resilient people in this world. It definitely has. If they've gone through it, they have proven it in that setting. But these people, that they have to prove it on the job, and they have to prove it on the flight. And if anything, that's a little bit more risky, but only time will tell. So to move forward a little bit more, are there any gaps that you see in the market at the moment where veterans could get more help?
There seems to be lots of companies recruiting for veterans. There's a lot of veteran programs out there in various industries, but it's getting people there. It's the signposting to get them there. I see so many guys on LinkedIn, I'm leaving the military, this is where I'm going, and they've got this whole career plan mapped out, but they've got no one there who's been through it to say, okay, looks great on paper, this is the reality, let me help you. Because, like I said, I was lucky that I spoke to Josh, but I didn't have someone on hand that I could call who was in the industry and say, this is my question. And they've got the answer through knowledge and through experience, or someone to send my CV to who, again, is in that industry, not as a back entrance to a job, but to say, okay, this is how you want to tailor it. This is, the key points you want to hit. So I think that mentoring and that network for that purpose needs to be built out.
Yeah. Just trying to think in terms of there should be something out there, and I'm hopeful that if somebody watches this, but there is obviously your tech vets, there is communities like that. There's obviously events that happen at the SF club, but it just needs to be more widely known, doesn't it? In terms of okay, this is the stark reality. I am leaving the military now, and I need to pay my mortgage. I'm going back, and it's not just the career that we're talking about now, and I do want to move it away from that. It is what we were saying at the start of the podcast in terms of them identity shifts. It is a sense of mentally, I cannot switch off from that. And I'm not talking about counselling or anything like that. We know that is readily available, and besides the stigma attached to the silly stigma attached to speaking about your problems, it's there and it's widely known, and we won't preach about it here. But it is that sense of I am no longer more like the soldier, I am more like the civilian, and I am now for the foreseeable, and I am a 30-year-old, not baby, but I'm a 30-year-old starting again, and that comes with its reskilling challenges. And I just don't know if there is that support out there, and it's a difficult one to assess, isn't it?
Yeah, and you brought up tech vets, and they're amazing, and I'm on the tech vets pages and things. But like I said, it's just those life skills. Like starting from scratch in the military, you get told when your dentist is. You can go to the med bay, and you'll see a doctor that day. Doing that in civilian street is
a nightmare,
and it costs.
Yes.
Like in the military, it's all covered. That's an additional cost, so you've got to factor that sort of thing in.
Do you think that they kind of they keep you too wrapped? Like military's really good for we teach you life skills, but do they kind of wrap you in cotton wool in the sense of a bit too much? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you learn some unreal life skills.
Yes,
but I don't think you learn living skills.
Nice.
You're in a accommodation. You're not paying extortionate rent. money's coming out of your wages to cover your accom. You're not paying council tax. You're not paying your bills because it's all covered. And then you leave and like, oh, I've got council tax, water, electricity.
Yep.
I've got to pay for my dental treatment. I've
Yep.
got to wait 6 weeks for a doctor's appointment. All that stuff you don't think about until you're like, this is what I've got to do now.
There's a little bit of, I'm sure there's a bit of pride that comes into it as well, which again is it will make you go in on yourself in the sense of, I've been to all these war zones and I've dealt with all these really hard tasks, and I'm coming back to London, I'm coming back to Manchester, Leeds, whatever it might be. I don't know how to sort out my TV license, for example. It could be something as like that. Yeah. And it's like, oh, your friends have moved on. Not moved on, but they've done that because they've not gone into the mill. And you feel like a little bit silly to maybe ask them, because you're like, well, I'm a 30-year-old man here. Like, I should know how to do it. Could be some of
that. I was really lucky. My wife was so supportive and still covers all those points. I still don't really understand or deal with any of the household bills. Like she still does that, and she's been amazing. But if I didn't have her, I'd have to do that on my own. And like you said, it's a 30-year-old. Who do you ask? So again, having some community that those silly questions can be asked, you can lean on people, sort of like a big brother or big sister, to just guide you through that period, because it can be really tough. And I know lots of guys that have really struggled because they don't know the simple things that people expect you to know. So they don't feel like they can ask.
And in terms of this, because it sounds like we are putting together the rationale of a potential program here. How would that work then, hypothetically? Would you start implementing it whilst in the mill, and then you carry on the same program for when they're out of the mill, and it's kind of like a crossover? Or does it purely exist as a separate entity outside the mill? Like, cool, you've left now, come here, open the door. Like, how would you position that?
I think the support needs to start before you leave.
Yes.
Agreed. I don't know what it's like now, but when I left, it was a year's notice. So as soon as you know you're leaving, that support needs to be there.
Part of the notice period is like, cool, okay, we've got to enroll you onto this.
And whether that be an official program or a network or community where, right, guys, I'm leaving, I've handed my notice in, this is the area I want to go into.
Yes.
Is anybody in that area that can help?
Yeah.
Or, can we have a call? Can we have a monthly drop-in session where I can just unload my fears and my concerns for someone to just go,
it'll be all right.
It will be all right, and what you're going through is completely normal. You'll be fine.
Sounds simple, doesn't it? It sounds really, really simple what we're saying here. And again, we both might be biased because we live in the cyber bubble, but cyber itself has a huge network of cyber people that have come from the mill. Don't get me wrong, I bet loads go into, loads go into the public service, maybe fire service, police, and I'm sure that there is networks for that, but it's not like cyber is alien to the military world. So there should be something already pre-built, and it's quite surprising in 2025 when we're having this chat that there isn't. But like you say, at least there is the middle ground of the network is very, like, if you ask for help, 9 times out of 10, you will get a reply. You will get a reply from the likes of Josh, but like, no problem, I can introduce you to X, Y, and Z. And that camaraderie will stay. So it's kind of like, it's good, but it's not excellent, and there is room for improvement, isn't there?
And like I said, it's there, people want to help. We've just got to get all of those people in the right place, because unless you're connected with them on LinkedIn or, social media, you're not going to see it. So we just need to get them all into one place so that those questions can be asked and answered by people that you might not know.
That's it. I suppose my final question to you, more than anything, is say somebody from down the street, your neighbour, they have just handed in their notice now, and putting aside, obviously we'll bring it back round to the careers to sort of finish off, like, if you could be that person, if you could be that mentor to somebody that's leaving in the next 6 to 12 months, what sort of tips would you give to them? Like what sort of 3 or 4 tips would you say, okay, you need to do X, you need to do Y, and then you should be able to land on your feet?
Knowledge is key. The knowledge is more than the qualifications. Do the training, do the online courses, but don't worry about the actual paper qualification, because it's money that you might not have. People want to see that you know it rather than you've got the paper certificate. Really think about the area you want to go into and hone your skills on one area. So if you want to go into CTI, really focus on CTI. Or if you want to go into pen testing, focus on pen testing, so that you can become as much of an expert in that field as you can. And 2, don't get disheartened.
Okay.
It's difficult to get into the industry. And there are lots of companies that employ veterans, but it's not going to happen overnight. Took me a year to the day. Left on the 24th of July, signed my first cyber contract. Oh, wow. 24th of July the following year. So don't get disheartened that it's not going to happen within the first 2 weeks you're leaving. Some people are really lucky and get jobs lined up for as soon as they leave, but it's not the norm. It's not the reality of everybody's going to fall on their feet.
Yeah. That's really good advice, Mark. And I did say last question, but I've got one last one. What were you in that year? Yeah. What were you doing in that year, 24th of July?
So I did some groundwork. So I did some construction. A friend of mine owned a construction company. So I was just doing what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what it was.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna just sit there and do nothing. And so I did some construction, did some groundworks, and then COVID hit in the April. So all of that stopped. Much like loads of people, everything ground to a halt. And then just focused on interviewing, speaking to people. So
you were never deterred from cyber, even though like COVID happened. That could be enough to be like, oh, I'm never going to catch a break here. If anything, that can go. You've gone from construction, like you've gone from military to construction to a world pandemic. Were you ever deterred? No.
No. So when I was doing the construction, that was a stopgap. So I was still interviewing, I was still networking and going to events, and COVID happened. And if anything, that spurred me on, because it was like, these cyber companies still have customers.
Yes.
Those customers still have a threat landscape and still have threats that they're facing every day. But what it did mean was I didn't have to travel to London 5 days a week because everyone went remote.
Yes.
So I was the first person in the company to sign on a fully remote contract.
Yes.
Which was perfect because I didn't have to travel. I could work from home. I could be there for my kids when they've been homeschooled. They could sit on a desk next to me. And it was the perfect storm of all the things that had happened, but it turned into a real positive.
Yep, absolutely. Mike, you've been terrific. And if anybody has any questions for what Mark might have raised today, any tips, any pointers saying actually there is such and such a program that that more of the community should know about, then absolutely please get in touch, and obviously we'll get it in the comments, and we'll make sure that we've shared that publicly. But once again, Mark, thank you very much for coming on the Screw Space podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers.